Hello. I'm going to be talking about something that I probably shouldn't be talking about, but I'm going to anyway, and I'm going to tread as lightly as I can because this is it's a very complicated topic to approach. It was Detransition Awareness Day like a couple weeks back, I believe. And knowing what detransitioning is, a lot of what I've seen under the hashtags is probably what you would expect. A lot of transphobia in there, a lot of people, a lot of reactionaries weaponizing people that have detransitioned and are using them to as a political weapon to attack the trans community as a way to make them invalid, degenerate, wrong, child groomers, a litany of other things. A litany of other things that are not true. Which is the fundamental problem that I see among the community is the fact that this doesn't get talked about as much as I honestly think it should. Because the way I see it, many of the reasons why these people like detransitioners get weaponized in such a way is because, in my personal opinion, you can in my opinion, all right, these people don't really they have a lot of trouble finding a home politically, I'll say. I hope you understand what I'm saying. That like what I mean by that is they to me it feels like they don't feel like they belong in leftist spaces, pro trans spaces, any other trans spaces because them being a detransitioner automatically means that they are a reactionary, they're a Blair White type, or now they're 100% against trans people, which from what I've seen is not true. Winter Rose is one of the prime examples of this. She goes on to say, quote, I let the internet convince me that gender dysphoria equals trans. Turns out, gender dysphoria can also be a symptom of not fitting into society's ideals for femininity and compounded by hating yourself. I am gender nonconforming, not trans. I don't know about this last part. I think, depending on who you ask, being gender nonconforming still makes it trans. Because there are trans people that don't really go through that just choose not to like physically transition. Like maybe they'll be on hormones. They could be on hormones and just like not go through any type of surgery or anything like that. Or just this is a whole spectrum. And on top of that, like if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. There are two different types of dysphorias. There is gender dysphoria, which pertains to society standards of, what gender is. And there's also body dysphoria, being someone who is deeply discomforted with the body that they're born in. And so the solution to that is hormones and surgery, which is fine. And the problem is the reason why these types of things happen was someone like Winter would go through the things that they've gone through is because there's a lack of broader really really strong lack of education or an understanding of these things. There's a lot of nuance into the topic of being trans and being when it pertains to sex and gender, when it talks talking about body dysphoria, gender dysphoria. there's a whole bunch of different other things that goes into this. And the fact, in my personal opinion, uh, the Republican Party or anybody that's reactionary trying to remove any education about these topics or trying to suppress people from teaching about these topics is damaging, and at least in situations like this where more people are transitioning and then realizing that they're not what they thought they were, and then they detransitioned. And this is a lucky one that didn't end up like allowing themselves to get weaponized by reactionaries to push an anti-trans narrative. But for a lot of other people's cases, they do get weaponized and used to be anti-trans things. It's really sad, and it's like it's just, and it goes further into why I believe that these people really can't find a political home, and they're more welcomed by reactionaries who will just use them for their own personal gain. Let's be real, they don't care. They don't give a shit about detransitioners beyond the aesthetics of being anti-trans. They will use you to destroy the trans community, and then beyond that, you are nothing to them. They'll just cast you aside like you're a piece of shit. And these people accept that. A lot of the detransitioners are okay with being used this way. I don't think they should be. It it's just sad when you think about this type of stuff. So, in my personal opinion, the failing of the trans community is not addressing the fact that detransitioners are valid, and they're valid for the reasons I have laid out for you. Is because there's a lot that goes into why they even transition in the first place. And the people that detransition were either just gender nonconforming, or they were never trans to begin with. Like, being trans isn't the act of going through hormones or surgery. Being trans starts in your brain, your noggin, your heart, your soul, all that, all that gay shit. So I did encounter like a few interesting tweets regarding the Detrans Awareness Day type shit. And let's look at this one. I think this guy's based. Well, this person is based. I feel like all the transphobes in the Detrans Awareness Day tag need to understand this. Just because you had a poor understanding of being trans does not mean that every trans person does. To think so is utterly selfish. These people are not quote unquote raising awareness, they're just transphobic. 100%. 100%. On the money, bruh. On the money, you got it. I'm gonna remove this from my bookmarks. Or not. I'll figure out a way to do it. Not one detransitioner that is speaking publicly has said that detransitioning was due to transphobia. In fact, they were supported by parents, friends, therapists, and doctors to transition, often tried or talked at detransitioning. Detransphobia. Oh, that's another hashtag? Oh, Lord Jesus. I mean, this person is technically right, but I swear I feel like the reading between the if you read between the lines, I feel like what they're saying here is a very anti-trans, pushing an anti-trans narrative by saying this. I don't know. I feel like this is structured in a way to be like, be transphobic. And they were quoting a tweet that said, "I support detransitioners that realize they're not trans, but this remains a hypothetical support because I've known dozens of detransitioners, and each case they were often open about the fact that they were trans but were detransing because of transphobia." That's interesting. That Is that true? How many people detransition because of transphobia? Actually, I think about it. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a thing. I don't think it's a common thing, but I'm pretty sure there are there are quite a few people that detransition because of it. Like either they detransition, or they commit suicide, which in my opinion is more likely. Like the suicide thing to me is more likely than like detransitioning. Which is why I think transphobia is a really, really, really huge problem and it kills people. It unironically kills people. And then this one, even though only around 5% of those who start transitioning decide to reverse the process, it doesn't make their experiences any less valid. I agree with what this person says because detransitioners are valid, and the fact that they're often like, you know, I don't think they get talked about enough, and the fact that people on the pro trans side or on the left side like shy away from talking about these topics is really feeds into why into this whole problem of why detransitioners are used as weapons to further push back against transness, because it's like we ignore the problem, we ignore the fact that these people exist, we don't like validate their existence because they are valid. It's like, and it's like the reason I gave before is because a lot of the times people like transition because they don't know any better, because they don't know, because they weren't trans, they thought they were trans and they transitioned and turns out they weren't trans, so they had to transition back. It sucks, and and it's because of the lack of education on these topics, and which is the reason why I think it should be talked about more, is because, and we need to use, I hate to say use, we need to address these from a perspective that validates trans people, because I believe you can do that. You can validate trans people. You can validate detransitioners to for the sake of the trans community, because the detransitioning, like I said, and I will continue to say again, the detransitioning comes from a lack of education on these topics. We have more people talking about trans ideas and more people at least even talking about detrans people, problems won't be as bad as they are now. I mean, they'll still exist. Of course, reactionaries are gonna use detransitioners as a way to push their shitty narratives, but it would help to validate these people's existence. It would help to validate all of these ideas. We can't ignore these people. No, and the last part, what to say? We should be making treatment more available to everyone, make it more accessible, bring those waiting lists down. Fair. That's fair. Can we also make treatment for trans people available as well? Free healthcare. Got him. My takeaway from hashtag Trans Awareness Day is that by failing to correctly identify genuine dysphoria in trans kids and mislabeling kids as trans when they aren't is failing all kids. Identifying issues are debilitating, and we need to do better on both ends. 100%. You are absolutely correct. I hope this is a pro trans person because it feels like a very pro trans tweet. This is pretty much exactly what I'm saying. Like, we need to identify these issues on both ends. Oh my god, we got a detransphobic person in here, folks. Who is this? Oh, this is a non binary person? Polyamorous, neurodivergent. I don't know. I don't know. Hashtag detrans. Yeah, hashtag detrans awareness day is looking super transphobic right now. Lol. You are valid if you detransition, it's healthy to take a second and make sure you're happy with your gender, and you will always be valid for it. It's not valid to lose it, to use it as an excuse to tear down the trans community. This person is right. Wait, why are you quote tweeting this and saying this is a detrans? I'm confused. I'm so confused. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that I feel like this is a topic that needs to be talked about more, because the more we ignore detransition people, the more we the more, in my opinion, we end up damaging the trans community. Detrans people are valid for the reasons I have already laid out. I don't feel like I should have to say it a fourth time, but this is something that needs to be addressed by a lot of people, because otherwise more and more of these individuals are going to be used to push political narratives that just push the trans community backwards. And I don't want that. I don't want to see that. Hell, I don't even want to see people thinking that they're trans because they don't know any better, transitioning and then having the transition back, because we're not talking about trans issues as much as we should. And these dumb fuck conservatives and Republicans pushing back against people wanting to teach about these issues to children. Yes, we should be teaching these to children. Children should know what gender dysphoria is or body dysphoria is, at least at around the third grade, mostly. At least for the third grade. Like, come on. If we start teaching about these things more, when children have questions, they will easily be provided answers. Because the fact that we're suppressing this knowledge leads to more people transitioning and then having to transition back. The Conservative Party is the most counterproductive party I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. All of the problems that they claim to fight against, they do everything in their power to make exist. All of the issues that they talk about, they keep making. They keep creating the problems that they claim to talk about. It's sad to see. It really is sad to see. And I hope none of you people take this the wrong way. I am nervous to put this video out, but you know, somebody had to say something. Hopefully a trans person or a detrans person will come to my face and call me a dumb fuck, and I will welcome you calling me a dumb fuck. If I'm wrong on anything, I'm open to criticism. If I deliver my message in a way that sounds like, in a way that's that sounds anti-trans, or that sounds like it's that it could be potentially damaging to the trans community, I would like to hear that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just a dumb fuck that's talking shit on the internet. That's all I am. So if I'm wrong, then help me out. Help a brother out. Help me out. I'm just trying my best here. But with all that said, you all have a wonderful, happy, wonderful, peachy day. Remember to drink water and touch grass.